3 years ago, I was a fisherman on the Lofoten coast of Norway, alongside my brothers, Halvard and Olav. People around here all know the stories about the Maelström, a whirlpool that can swallow ships, something straight out of fishermen's nightmares. But stories are one thing, living through it is another. If you're hearing my voice, it's probably because you're curious, or skeptical, or just killing time scrolling through scary videos. You're probably wondering if any of this is true. I stopped caring who believes me a long time ago. I just want someone to listen all the way through. Maybe then my nights would be quieter. Maybe I'd sleep again. When you've worked 1,000 shifts on a North Sea trawler, you stop being afraid of the ocean. You respect it. You plan routes, check the weather, run drills until they're second nature. The real fear is boredom, falling profits, an empty catch. That's what drove us out there that July. A rumor that the cod were thick past Moskin Island, right on the edge of the forbidden zone. We'd risked bad currents before for a good haul, but that morning, the water was flat, the wind steady from the south, and our GPS had a clean signal. It felt like any other day. Olaf was in high spirits, humming along to some pop song on his phone, cracking jokes. Halvard, though, he kept watching the clouds, frowning, sniffing the air. I can still hear him muttering, "Storm's wrong. Doesn't smell like rain." I brushed it off, tried to tease him. We were all a little superstitious, but you can't show fear out loud. By the time we reached the deeper channel, the sky was already shifting. The clouds were building, layered and bruised, and the light went sickly yellow. A gull landed on the deck rail, looked at us and screamed over and over, until Olaf chucked a bait fish at it to make it go away. The first odd thing was the radio. Static, then dead silence, even on the emergency channel. I tried the sat phone and just got a thin, keening hiss that spiked and faded like a living thing. That was when Halvard said he felt dizzy, like the boat was swelling under his feet. I laughed, but I saw Olav pause, suddenly not joking. "Feels like vertigo," he said. "Like the boat's in an elevator. You really don't feel it?" We dropped the nets anyway. The catch was insane. Cod after cod, slippery and fat, flopping over the deck until our boots sloshed. It was better than any trip I'd had in a year. I should have been grinning. Instead, I kept fiddling with the radio, feeling a pressure in my ears just under the noise of the wind. Do you ever get that feeling where you sense a thunderstorm's about to break before you hear the first boom? It was like that, but the charge was under my skin. Around 3 in the afternoon, Olav pointed portside, face gone white. He didn't say a word. I saw what he saw, a shoulder-high ridge of black water, curling from the horizon, not a wave, not tide, nothing I could explain. For a second I thought it was some optical illusion, but it was real, moving fast. The boat started to spin, not sharply, but with this slow, lazy spiral, nets trailing, cod forgotten, engine whine going up and up. I'll never forget that sound. The water screaming, the deck groaning, metal flexing in ways it never had before. My hands went numb. For a few seconds I thought it was a water spout, that we'd hit one of those freak sideways currents the old-timers talk about. But then the boat listed, sharp and hard. My feet left the deck, and I crashed into the rail, ribs bruised, breath knocked out of me. Halvard yelled. I can't remember the words, just the panic. Olav tried to gun the engine, but it was pointless. The dial on the depth finder spun. First it read 100 meters, then 500, then it flashed error. The boat, the Svartahund, shuddered and dropped, like an elevator with the cable cut. I thought I'd die right then, honestly. Drown, maybe, or get thrown into the sea. But somehow the boat stayed afloat, bucking like a wild animal. The world shrunk to water above, below, everywhere. My ears popped. I heard roaring, groaning, a throbbing. Deep enough I felt it in my teeth. Then, the storm hit for real. The sky snapped black. Rain and wind hit all at once, stinging hard enough to draw blood. I couldn't see Halvard, just his shape, pitching, arms reaching for something. The main mast wrenched and snapped like a matchstick, nearly taking Olav with it. He screamed. The sound cut off with a bang, like something huge had slammed into the hull. I tried to crawl aft, holding on with both hands to anything I could. Each second, the noise built. Wind howling, metal shearing, a drumming under the waves. Every instinct said to hold on, brace, survive the roll. But then I looked up. You ever see the ocean? Climb? Not rise, climb. The horizon wasn't level. Off the starboard, the water curved up, impossibly steep, black as night, streaked with foam. In it reflected the moon, even though the moon was hidden behind thunderheads. A paradox, right? I saw the deck lit up by cold white light, as if we were under a harsh spotlight and nothing else existed. The rest of the world had vanished. Then the Maelström revealed itself. At first it wasn't a hole, but a movement. Everything, the clouds, the water, the wind, spiraled toward that one point off our bow. I saw logs, barrels, a whole patch of kelp, and, God help me, an overturned inflatable boat swept past, caught in the pull. The Svartahund bucked violently, then spun, stern first, toward the center of the current. For a second I locked eyes with Halvard, clinging to the life ring. The terror there was worse than anything the sea could offer. He tried to reach Olav, but something huge, some shadow, or maybe just the foam, slammed him out of sight. I started to come apart inside. I shouted. I stretched for my brother's hand, found only the slick curve of the rail. My fingers, frozen stiff, wouldn't move. The sea began to scream, not wind, not mechanical. A noise I'd never heard before and hope I never hear again. A sound that rattled the boat like a living animal, that made my bones ache. I don't remember making the decision, but I must have. Instinct, maybe. Survival. There was a storage barrel lashed at the stern, a faded red emergency floating barrel. I scrambled for it, pulled the knife from my belt with teeth chattering so bad I could barely bite down. The deck pitched. A wall of water hammered my legs. I lashed myself to the barrel, numb, blood running down my wrists from where the rope burned. The last thing I saw before the world turned upside down was Olav. Or maybe just his jacket, slipping under a wave, gone without a sound. The boat lurched hard, lifting high into the air, then dropped and spun. I thought I heard something like laughter in the swirling, echoing off the water and the steel. I closed my eyes. I prayed. Then I was under, but not drowned. I was still strapped to the barrel, water roaring on every side, spinning faster and faster, my head pulled this way and that. I think I blacked out more than once. Sunlight, then black, then blue, the moon again, always that impossible moon. When I surfaced, I don't know how long later, the world was changed. The air was silent, thick, weirdly warm. My skin was sodden and numb, but somehow I lived. The barrel, shaped just right, had fought the current, spun wide of the worst of the vortex. The Svartahund was gone. Halvard and Olav were gone. I drifted for ages, maybe hours, maybe minutes. I have no idea. Time gets strange out there. Eventually, another fishing boat, Kjells, from Rhine, picked me up. They thought I was dead, or mad. My face was gray, My hair, once black, had gone white as chalk. They asked what happened. I told them. They didn't believe me. They said the Maelström is just a freak current, a natural hazard, a sailor's myth. But some nights, if you listen, you can still hear a faint screaming carried over the water. And sometimes, when I close my eyes, I see the moon reflected in black water, rising up when there's no moon in the sky. You don't have to believe me, but whatever you do, don't fish past Moskin, not when the air tastes like metal, not when the gulls scream, and not when something in the depths starts to pull. Because some things out there aren't meant for us. Some things are hungry and old and waiting. And I know because I came back, but not all of me made it out. Maybe you're still listening, thinking I've lost my grip, that I hallucinated all of it, that it was the panic and the storm and the blood loss. That's what the doctors said after they found me. Shock, exposure, maybe a mild stroke. I'm not here to argue. I'm not here to convince you. The brain invents all sorts of stories, but hallucinations don't leave scars. Hallucinations don't leave your hair white and your reflexes shredded, and your nights filled with that noise, that endless churning scream. After the rescue, the Oslo hospital sent me to a therapist, a kind woman in a bright office, shelves full of books behind her. She asked me again and again to tell her what happened after the barrel plunged beneath the surface. She wanted to talk about the loss, the traumatic details. She wanted me to say I saw nothing, just black, that I floated and finally washed up somewhere. I know what she wanted to hear, but that's not what happened. Down there, below the world, the water wasn't black, not at first. It was filled with colors I still can't really name, shifting in the vortex, a spiral tunnel so fast and precise that it made every part of my body hum. I was tumbling but not drowning, spinning in the dark, the surface a distant silver membrane above me. It was like being inside a hurricane made of liquid glass, with the stars spinning above and below. There were shapes too, enormous things, slow and deliberate and ancient, turning with me in the current. I swear I saw shadows in the water with eyes the size of canoes, staring back, not sharks, not whales, something older. Sometimes I hear them in dreams, speaking in a language made of pressure and nightmares. There was music too, not real music, not anything you could hum, but a pulse, deep and slow, making the bones in my skull vibrate. I saw the barrel smash against a log, felt a jolt across my ribs, and wondered, just for a second, if I'd already died, and this was hell. But I wanted to live. Even there, I tasted iron and brine and something like static electricity. The pull of the whirl grew less, the spinning slowed, and the dark gave way to pale indigo, then to froth and broken light. Then as suddenly as it started, the current changed. It spat me outward, like something living twisting in its sleep, deciding it was finished with me. The sense of falling stopped, and for a sickening moment, I floated on my back, strapped to the half-crushed barrel, the only sound my own heartbeat, racing fit to burst. The sea was tamer then, but the pieces of the Svartehund, timber, ropes, drenched orange float jackets, bobbed around me, turning in the oily swells. Not much else. No sign of Halvard, no sign of Olav. Somewhere on the edge of my vision, the sea boiled again, but it was moving away, shrinking and fading into foam as the current lost its mind-bending grip. I drifted, a shape. At first, I thought it was another ghost. Turned out to be Kjell's fishing boat, white hull barely visible through the spray. The next thing I remember for sure is Kjell's voice, the smell of diesel, and hands hauling me in. They bundled me in blankets, poured coffee between my lips. But even then the world twisted. The deck felt wrong. The horizon forever slanted. I kept waiting for the pull beneath me, waiting for gravity to reverse and take me back under. When we landed at the dock, the paramedics nearly dropped their kit when they saw my face. I heard one whisper, "He looks 80. Look at his hair." A few days ago, it had been pitch black. Now even my eyebrows were white. They took me to a hospital in Svolvær. I slept, or maybe just lay there, twitching. Sometimes I heard the sea, louder than any ambulance, louder than the nurse's nocturnal chatter. I dreamt of eyes in the whirl, sucking down ships like playthings, and I dreamt of my brother's hands, reaching for me in the dark, blaming me for letting go. They said shock does that, makes your hair turn, ages your face, imprints wrinkles as if you've lived 100 years in a night. That's what they told me, and I almost started to believe them. But then the voices came. At night, especially. Sometimes when I closed my eyes, I heard a thin remote singing in the walls, like a radio stuck between channels, humming the same weird, shifting melody as down in the Maelström. I'd jolt awake, heart hammering, covered in sweat, convinced someone stood next to my bed, someone dripping, cold, and angry. I moved home when I was discharged. The house by the water was never much, but it felt safe once. Back when my mother still left cod soup on the stove, and the wind was just the wind. Now I kept the curtains shut. I unplugged the radio. Every knock on the door made my skin shrink tight over my bones. Some nights I could hear the screaming coming up from the docks. Some nights, around slack tide, I saw the moon reflected in the sea, even when it wasn't up, even when the sky was black. I started writing this down, over and over, filling notebook after notebook, as if maybe if I put it somewhere outside my head, the memories would leave me quiet. You're still with me, aren't you? Still listening? If you are, let me say the part nobody ever tells you about survival. People say lucky. They say, "You made it out, Magnus. You beat impossible odds." But you don't come out of that thing unchanged. Whatever power owned the Maelström, it tore pieces from me as payment. It filled them with something else, something cold and watchful, something I'll never be rid of. And if you're out there on a boat, and the sky goes yellow and the gulls scream, and you hear something in the water singing, a song you've never learned, but which makes your guts twist with fear, turn back. No story is worth the price I paid. Because out there on the edge of Norway, the Maelström is always hungry, and it never forgets. Maybe you're asking yourself why I'm telling this. Maybe you think I get something out of reopening the wound, reliving every second I'd give anything to forget. There's no comfort in this story, just compulsion. I suppose I keep talking because I'm afraid of what comes if I stop. Afraid the silence will fill up with that faint humming from beneath the waves. In the weeks and months after, people tiptoed around me. Some said I was cursed. Others told me I was blessed by fate, a living legend. Old men bought me drinks at the pub, pressed for tales about the old sea gods, or the angles only the dead know. I smiled when I had to, swallowed the bitter taste in my mouth, and lied when I couldn't bear it. Nobody, not even my family, really wanted the details. My mother's hands shook when she hugged me for the first time after. My uncle crossed himself and muttered prayers meant to keep evil spirits away. I caught my own reflection and barely recognized the hollowed face, white hair, aged eyes staring back. Sometimes, just for a moment, I'd see the shimmer of a whirl in the black of my pupils and look away fast. My therapist tried everything: breathing exercises, meditation, medication. It helped with sleep sometimes, but nothing eased the memories. If I closed my eyes with the lights off, I'd find myself right back there. In the roar, the cold, the impossible geometry of water climbing the sky. It was worse on windy nights, or when storms rolled in from the Atlantic. The Maelström was gone, but its echo stayed with me, gnawing at the edges of every quiet moment. Survivor's guilt, they called it. The phrase sounds neat, clinical, but in my mind, there's no order, just endless, looping questions. Why did the barrel float just so, keeping the pull at bay? Why did I live when Halvard and Olav, both stronger swimmers, both braver than me, were lost? Why did that ancient thing decide I was allowed to leave when it could have cracked me open and swallowed me whole like so many others? Something changed in me, down there. I know it's not just in my head. Animals sense it. The neighbor's dog won't come near me, even now. Once, walking the harbor steps, an entire flock of gulls rose up screaming into the sky as I passed. Sometimes, on the rare days I muster the courage to walk by the water, the reflections shift in strange ways, rippling sideways, as if the sea remembers me, as if it's waiting for a reason to call me back. Kids tell stories about the ghost fisherman with the white hair who survived the Maelström. They dare each other to run past my front gate after dark. I don't bother correcting them. Let the story keep them safe. Let the story keep everyone away from what's really out there. But every now and then, on certain nights, when the wind twists through the rocks just right, I swear I hear their voices, not just Halvard and Olav, but all the lost souls the Maelström ever claimed, bubbling up with the tide. At first I thought it was just in my head, a plea for forgiveness, but sometimes the lights flicker, and the house grows unreasonably cold, and the song rises through the cracks in the floorboards, a voice from the depths, low and strange and endless. I wonder if that's what it wants, not for us to die, but for us to remember, to carry its mark, to spread the warning. Maybe in some twisted way, I'm supposed to keep telling the story, to make sure no one forgets the hunger lurking just under the surface. So if you've listened this far, and you're tempted by the sea, if you're the type who needs to see for yourself, remember my tale. Heed my fear. Because there are places in this world that pay no mind to your plans, your technology, your belief in safety. There are old forces waiting, watching, loving the challenge of some new soul who thinks nature can be measured and conquered. In Lofoten, on the blackest nights, the Maelström still spins. You'll never see it coming. Just the air ripening with copper and ozone, just the shapes shifting below the waves, just that sick feeling in your stomach warning you to turn around. Listen to that feeling. Don't end up a voice in someone else's nightmare. And if you ever do hear a faint harmony, like a song crawling up from the bottom of the sea, don't listen. Don't ever, ever listen. Not unless you're ready to lose yourself, forever circling in the dark. Some stories are warnings, not wonders. I survived the Maelström, but it never quite let me go. And when my story ends, I know it'll be waiting, hungry, ancient, patient. Out there on the edge of the world, things you don't believe in are watching you back. And sometimes, if you've been marked, they start to whisper your name.